the succession, you could see no difference between Major and Blair. There was a continuation. So there's a real seasoned appreciation and understanding, and even the DUP under Paisley ended up coming round, to that conclusion. But for some reason on Brexit, there's three moves there that require reflection, and it'd be interesting. You won't get it in politics because it's too raw, but somebody in the future doing some research, when the DUP thinkers are out of office in the long period in the future, it'd be fascinating to ask and find out, why did you opt for believing in Brexit? Did you understand the costs of it? Mm-hmm. Then when it came to the single market, there was a considerable body of thought that said, okay, we're leaving the European Union, but we're going to still be in the single market. You don't have to go for the most extreme interpretation. And then the customs union was the last leg. So there's something in that space around, unionism, perhaps not having really honed skills in understanding Westminster and how to extract the best deal. Mm-hmm. I thought Trimble, actually, to give Trimble his dues, I thought Trimble played his hand very, very well in the late 90s and early 90s.
Yeah. And then I will surely let you go, but you used a word that I found interesting. That you said that for unionists, the territorial issue was settled. And in some unionists that I have interviewed, they have said the Good Friday Agreement was a settlement. But of course, to nationalists I talked to say, no, Good Friday Agreement was a process. So it was kind of a conceptualizing on each side of what the intent of the agreement was.
Yeah, so the Good Friday Agreement, when I used the phrase that it was a settlement, it is both. It is not either or. Mm-hmm. So it's a process that was that we were led into, that resulted in what was best for that moment in time. It has the potential within that to go further, aka the referendum, and aka further evolution, etc., etc. So it is a process at the same time. It's a dynamic process. It didn't definitively settle the constitutional status of Northern Ireland, because that could potentially be re-examined through a referendum, where we are right now. But it did settle, and the reason I would use the word settle, it did settle for the first time the legitimate and democratic recognition and acceptance of Northern Ireland as a political entity. So, you have, Ireland is the definition is used. It's not the Republic of Ireland, it's Ireland. So when you talk to the Irish government, it's referred to as Ireland, not ERA, not any other deviation, that was used in Northern Ireland over the years, not the Free State, or sometimes you hear my grandmother used to talk about the Free State.
Except among Sinn Féin, who still say the 26 counties.
Correct, but
even in opposition in government.
Yeah. But in the agreement that Sinn Féin signed up to, Northern Ireland, so people will refer to it as the north of Ireland. Okay, you hear that phraseology. But constitutionally, in the referendum, north and south, you have Ireland, you have Northern Ireland, you have the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now, and the official title, is, First Minister and Deputy First Minister, right? And, you have the Northern Ireland Policing Service, you have all of this. My only point there is that the concept of Northern Ireland, which lacked legitimacy in 1921, and right up to 1998, all of a sudden has been given democratic and legal legitimacy, where the Northern nationalist population and Catholic population recognized its existence. And they also, implicit in that, is a democratic right in the future to change that status. And that's where, it's a process on the one hand, that's an evolving process, because some people say the Good Friday Agreement brought about peace. It ended a conflict, but did bring about reconciliation. So there's an element there of further stages. But it also was a settlement in that whether, one liked it or not, at that point, once that referendum decision was passed, Northern Ireland had, for the first time since its foundation, it had a legitimacy. And flowing from that legitimacy, we have a whole range of things that have occurred.
I've asked Sinn Féin people I've been talking to or that I interviewed, I said, the Good Friday Agreement says in its opening paragraphs, it refers to something called Northern Ireland. You refuse to call it that. You still call it the Six Counties. How do you equate that with your parity of esteem and that you will protect the British identity of people when you won't even call their state by what the legal name of it is? No good answer.
And you see, it's essential that you ask that question, because that is exactly a legitimate question that is drawing out potential inconsistencies, because you can't point at the other and say, you're inconsistent on this, this, and this. So, when people refer to the Republic of Ireland, actually the official title is Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. And if you look in the documentation, it is Ireland, it is Northern Ireland. These are the terms that people signed up to. So it's things like that I would say, when you ask me there about the question, is Sinn Féin the elephant in the room for unionism? I think, somebody that came through the talks and the peace process like Martin McGuinness would be able to give you an answer, because he understands, he could recall every single stage of that conversation, but he would also understand the attachment that people have, that communities have, or the unionist community has to the words, and around to say, well, yes, we accepted that, and that was difficult, but we accepted that on the basis of X, Y, and Z. And the answer to that would be, an answer to that would be to say, yes, that was there, but that recognition of Northern Ireland, which was a democratic decision by the Irish people taken north and south, giving up Articles 2 and 3. The flip side of that coin, which I would also expect people to acknowledge, is that the status of Northern Ireland, its sovereign status, can be changed by a referendum by the wishes of a majority of the people within that territorial state defined by Northern Ireland. So you can't have one without the other. And that's where I fear that perhaps as a result of Brexit, there's been a divergence. People, see what they want to see in a particular part of the agreement, rather than coming at it in the totality. And in the totality, there are things that affirm and there are things that make some people uncomfortable. And the idea was that happens in equal measure. So it's back to that thing in the British position and the Irish position around the balancing. And if anything we're facing at the moment, Padraig, it's around, I think the Irish are still doing the balancing, and they're still there. They're still trying to, use the old architecture that's there to navigate a difficult issue. But I think London is distracted at the moment through a myriad of other